Welcome, friends. Welcome back to the Inspired Yogi. This week I am with Dallisa Hocking. And Dallisa, thank you for coming on the show. I'm really excited to have this conversation today.
I am delighted to be here. I love your energy. And I know that the conversation is going to be very interesting, and I can't wait to see what comes of it.
Same, same. From what I gathered, you are all about teaching people to listen to their inspiration. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I've been a psychic medium since 2015. I'm fifth generation. So I've been making a lot of predictions for a lot of years. But
Mm-hmm.
what I really realized is I enjoy teaching people how to fish rather than just hand them the fish. So, over the last year or so, it's come in louder and louder about really reminding people about their own psychic abilities, their own intuition, and that they don't have to outsource their power to anyone else. They don't have to ask anyone else for permission, that they can do that themselves. So, a lot of my work is really based on that belief these days.
I absolutely love that. Um, I think a lot of people do go see mediums and looking for inspiration from other people, but yeah, encouraging people to get it from themselves, that's beautiful. How exactly do you do that?
I teach them how to raise their frequency and different practices they can do so that they learn to trust the subtle wisdom that comes in through intuitive downloads. Because I think it's all a frequency. I'd call it like a frequency game. I don't know. Maybe it's a fun way to say it, but that we all are existing in this time and place, and we each hold our own frequency. The frequency that I've been shown over the years, let's say of the other side, where we could call it home, where we go back to after we leave this body, that is at a different frequency. And when we attune our energy to the frequency of source, God, creator, or we attune it to the other side, we then are able to kind of act as our own antenna and bring forward information that we want to bring forward for our own lives or things that we're looking at in the world, business decisions, relationships, money. We can do all of that. It's all within our reach, but I think we have to attune our own radio dial to the frequency to match whatever it is that we are trying to look at or attract in. And then we are able to create that bridge between us and the point that we're trying to connect into. Does that make sense?
It makes absolute sense, but it leads to the question, how do you tune that radio dial?
I talk about guided meditations and journaling all the time. And I know that a lot of podcasters and spiritual people in the community talk about meditating and journaling a lot as well. So I probably sound a little bit like a broken record, but the meditations that I've had the most profound alignment with, where I've been able to channel the most, actually are in the lane of binaural beats. And my whole journey in 2015 started at a retreat where I wasn't expecting to, go from being a matchmaker and a dating coach to then being a psychic medium. But at that retreat, there was a company there that I'm not affiliated with, but they're called Sacred Acoustics. And they were having us listen to all of these different audio files. And by the end of my time on that trip in New York, I had the experience where I saw someone I didn't know that had just died hours before while I was sleeping, which opened the whole gateway up. And so I actually, after I got home from that retreat, started trying to replicate what I had at that retreat, which was those audio files. I felt like those were the secret ingredient. And so I started listening to one of their like free audio files and coming up with a person that I wanted to channel on that gave me permission. And then writing everything that I was seeing, sensing, feeling, and writing it all down on a piece of paper. So that's how it all started. But I really track it back to the audio file. So I think people that may hear, like, oh, you have to meditate. you don't have to do every meditation that's been created. I would choose the ones that align most with you. And maybe you've never heard of binaural beats, or maybe you love them and you've seen, adjustments in your own way of being by listening to those. But I noticed that that's what really cracked the code for me. I don't have to listen to those audio files, and I haven't for many, many years in order to channel or to make predictions. But I do listen to them when I want to achieve some kind of state of being. But I would suggest for people to look into different audio files from trusted sources that they feel also open them up. And when it comes to journaling, one of the best practices that I've seen over the years to help people to create spaciousness so that they can connect in easier is a practice that was in the book The Artist's Way, which is called morning pages. And it's where you take three blank pieces of paper and a pen with no journaling prompt, and you write until all three pages are full, and you do it every morning. And I also noticed an incredible shift with that practice because it got all of the noise out of my head. Because I've noticed with my psychic development students over the years that they can be very preoccupied with life, right? We have things moving a million miles an hour in all directions. So we have a lot of things taking up bandwidth in our energy and in our brains. And so I found with the morning pages practice that we can dump it all out on the piece of paper, feel like the piece of paper heard it in a way, and that we can move about our day with a lot more of, just like I said, spaciousness. So I think those two things between the audio files and the morning pages, I have found those have moved the needle the most and are not that complicated. But also keeping in mind one more thing that I'm hearing from Spirit in my ear right now to mention is that you have to believe that you can tap into your own intuition and your own gifts, because one of the biggest pieces of sabotage that I've seen over the years is students that don't believe they can, or students that don't believe that they are worthy of receiving information. So because they don't have that confidence, they don't believe they can, they get to be right. And they usually block the information from coming forward. So I would add that on as like the third thing that can help you connect in faster, stronger, and have accurate messages that come through.
Okay, that was a lot. I wanna back up to when you talked about the binaural beats. I've been listening to some, but you said making sure they're from a trusted source. So how do you know if you have a trusted source? I mean, what determines that?
I would look for people that have produced a lot of files that have been around a while. I would look to see if they have any reviews that are posted anywhere. If you find the name of a company that you feel you want to get audio files from, you could do a search and see what their company name brings back. In the search, a lot of people that don't like companies usually are very loud in their reviews. And so you could probably find some good feedback online, because there are platforms and, so many YouTube channels. Anyone can start a YouTube channel. Um, and so I would lean into the research a little bit if you're going to do something that's a little bit more public, like just going and finding someone's YouTube video, because anyone can put anything out. And I really love studying things about going deeper within the mind. And so my concern would be, or my little red flag that pops up is there any subliminal messages or hypnosis that they have put into the audio track that they are not disclosing? There are also apps like Insight Timer where you can go on, and there are a lot of reviews and people that also write about their experience with whatever class or file it is. So I would just say take a little bit of time. I really like Sacred Acoustics because I met them at that retreat that changed my life. But I've also seen Dr. Eben Alexander, who is a part of that company, who had a near death experience years ago. He wrote a book about it and is a very trusted person in the industry. And so, because he has said, I'm working with this company, then I think that gives some more credibility to what they're doing because you have a neurosurgeon that's behind the company and trusts in it and believes in it. So a little bit of research can go a long way.
Yeah, I agree. I was just thinking as you were talking, I use Grok, the AI, all the time for research, and that would be a great resource, I think, just to go to that and see what comes up. I don't trust everything from AI, but sometimes if you ask the right questions, do the right digging, it can be really, very helpful.
I agree. It's a great resource.
Yeah. So you also mentioned journaling. And this is nothing new. I've been hearing about journaling for decades. I've tried it myself. I am not, and I don't even like to affirm that, but journaling's not my thing. It's just, I feel blocked when I go to journal. Any advice there for myself or someone else who might be blocked when they go to journal?
Yes. So I wouldn't want anyone, including yourself, to force yourself to journal if it's not for you. I'd much rather you find a practice that you really enjoy. One thing that helped me several years ago was a program called Unmute Yourself. Again, not affiliated with it, but a woman named Anne Randolph. She's worked with Alanis Morissette. Um, Unmute Yourself is where you get onto the computer and Anne gives you a journaling prompt and everyone is on Zoom together writing at the same time on their computers or in their journals. And then after you write, some people that feel called to, they can share about what they wrote about that journaling prompt. So I think that live interaction
Mm-hmm.
helped inspire me to write more and think about things that I had never thought about before. So if you're looking for more of like a creative angle to try journaling in a live interactive way, that may be interesting. But I've seen with individuals that maybe don't align with journaling, one of the things that has kept coming up over the years is work around the throat chakra.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if journaling isn't your thing, could humming or chanting be something that would feel like you're moving that energy in the throat and that you are getting it out and you are expressing it in some way? So, if journaling is not your thing, I would try, yeah, I'm hearing in my ear as we're doing this kirtan music,
Ooh.
which is, yeah, and it's beautiful. And you can go on to all kinds of different kirtan singers and groups and start singing kirtan, even if you're just at home and you're singing with your computer screen or your TV. But that kind of movement and energy with that music, I think can really activate some of the same things that journaling would.
Oh, now you're speaking my language. I just love kirtan.
There you go.
Yeah, I seek it out. We actually went to kirtan, my wife and I, recently, not too far from home, and learned there's a local group that comes here occasionally. So it's a beautiful thing. And I have to mention, this is the second podcast in a row that Alanis Morissette has been mentioned. I don't know what's going on there, but how cool.
She is incredible. And I never realized, growing up how spiritual she is
Hmm.
and yeah, and it just feels like now when I listen to her music, I feel like a resonance with her. So maybe since she's come up twice now, maybe she'll cross paths with you in some way. Um, Maybe she's gonna come onto the forefront a little bit more with maybe some spiritual endeavors or spiritual music of some kind. So we'll watch the headlines for Alanis Morissette.
Yeah, that would be really cool. Come on the show, Alanis. We'd love to have you as a guest. So, yeah, I my last podcast was with Cole Adams from Cole Adams Music, and she's producing, she's a singer-songwriter producing healing music in 432 hertz with positive affirmation and askformations as the lyrics. So it's kind of going in line with what you're talking about with the binaural beats and the healing and the vibration, and it's just powerful music that I joked this morning as I returned a comment from her that I might have to start charging her rent for all the space her music's taking up in my brain right now.
It sounds like she's got a combination of all the things we've been discussing so far. I love that. it's like a one-stop shop that you could kind of go listen to that music and have the resonance of that frequency, but
Mhm.
also be manifesting and aligning your energy with those higher resonances, which we talked about already. So I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. That's great music. So, you talked about being a medium. What was your success rate for predicting things?
Yeah, I'd say, gosh, it's so hard because I don't track every prediction
Hmm.
and but I can think of some that were very kind of strange and out of the ordinary that ended up coming true. Um, because I think predictions are only as good as the person interpreting them.
Okay.
Because I think spirit's really good about bringing forward symbols and words and feelings, but it's like playing Pictionary. So the information and how it's conveyed, I think, is only as good as you are a Pictionary player, because spirit could be showing you a symbol that you think is about a new job, but instead it may be connected to a very different part of your life or the person's life. So it's why keeping something like a psychic dictionary is helpful, because when spirit shows you a symbol in your mind's eye, usually they're going to use it over and over again to
Hmm.
convey the same information. And so once you know, like, oh, every time they show me a set of keys, it's going to mean, I'm moving, or, I'm going to get a new car, but it's going to be unique to each individual. So I'd like to think that my accuracy rate is really high. And I've created quite a following over, the last decade doing this work. And I think one of the hallmarks that I looked to early in my career to see if it was resonating was if people were referring their friends and family to me. And I had a lot of that, so much so I actually had to open up my own spiritual center in Las Vegas because there were so many people. So it was a really good problem to have. Um, but yeah, success rate. I would say one of the things that comes to mind about a prediction that ended up coming true that we can actually point back to because there's evidence of it, was early 2025. There was a helicopter airplane collision in the Washington, D.C. area.
Hmm.
And a couple of days before that happened, I had a dream. And I woke up from the dream, and Spirit said, "You need to make a video about this and share this." So I made a 60-second video. Anybody that wants to go back and find it is on my Instagram or my Facebook. And I was in my pajamas, no makeup on. And I said, I need to talk about what just happened. I saw a helicopter, I saw an airplane, and I described the feeling of it. And you can feel, I think, in my tone when you're watching it, that I was concerned about the visions that I had seen. And then a couple days later, unfortunately, a bunch of people died when the collision happened.
Hmm.
And um, people remembered I made the video a few days before and actually went back and said, "Oh my God, you saw this." And so that's one instance where I could point to and say, "See, we have the timestamps,"
Yeah.
because that's very specific. But I think a lot of us start feeling things in advance, especially when there's something incredibly emotional. There's stories about in 2001, before 9/11 happened, there were a lot of people feeling heaviness or they were getting visions of airplanes. There's a famous sculptor that was having visions of airplanes and actually created sculptures. I saw this, I think, on a YouTube video recently. I wish I could remember the source of it. Um, but that he was creating these sculptures where planes were hitting a person. And then he ended up dying. And so there's this whole like synchronicity about why was he getting all of these airplane visions and then was killed in 9/11. So I think we're also seeing that now, that there are a lot of people feeling a lot of heaviness about things that are happening on the world stage and headlines if they're watching the news anymore. And so I think that that points to, what's happening in the collective which Spirit has told me over the years that although it will be a dismantling, the individual actually will have incredible blessings and opportunities during this time. And what I'm hearing in my ear right now to say is that it's what each person makes of it.
Mm.
And that is so easy for us, I think, to get pulled into the chaos, the panic, and the fear,
Yeah.
but that there's actually incredible high frequencies that we have around us and that we can connect with at any time. So even when we may see a headline that creates a lower frequency, we don't need to stay in that frequency. And it's okay for us to live our best life because I hear a lot from people that they feel bad or guilty about having blessings and abundance when so much is going wrong in the world. And Spirit's been very clear to remind us that we have the ability to be in the frequency of abundance. We can shift our mindset any moment we want to. And as we embrace more of those higher frequencies, we ripple that out into the world. And by doing that, we actually can create more of that higher frequency on earth. Because when we are in a lower frequency, that is what we are rippling out to the person we pass, at the grocery store, we're standing next to at the gas station. What we embody really does make a difference in the world.
Oh yeah, totally. I agree. Um, so as you were sharing, I was thinking about a experience that I had, a psychic experience I had in my 20s, where I knew something awful was going to happen on the world stage. Couldn't tell anybody about it at the time. I mean, I just thought people would think I'm crazy. I was literally on a submarine. I was in the Navy, so it's like, what do you do down there with that kind of information? But it produced like this pain feeling in my gut, knowing that this bad thing was going to happen. So I feel like I somehow blocked my powers out because I didn't want to feel this awfulness of being able to predict something like that. But now, 40 years later, I'm like, man, I'd like to open that back up. So is the suggestion the same with the meditation binaural beat? I do meditate a lot. I listen to binaural beats. Um, Not journaling. I do kirtan. I do so many things, but I'm not finding this um, psychic abilities opening back up. But I don't know if it was just a one and done. It was just kind of a weird situation.
I think we can all access it. So I think it's more about finding the modality or the pathway that you feel most aligned with that can open it up. I think a lot of times just asking the universe, like, I'm ready to open this back up, bring
Hmm.
me information. I think that's like the biggest first step that a lot of people miss because it's a two-way conversation between us
Yep.
and spirit. So I would start infusing that in each and every day and saying it in the present tense. My psychic abilities are open to the highest frequencies, and start infusing more of that language into your life. I do suggest, which I'll kind of give you a couple of variations of this. So with a journaling, anyone that does like writing, they can take a piece of paper and a pen and write at the top. I call mine this my spirit team, but you can say, Spirit team, what do I need to know today? And you
Mm.
can go into a meditation at that point and write down everything that you're seeing, sensing, feeling, even if it's just one word that you get or one thing that you're seeing in your mind's eye. Because the moment you ask and you set that intention, what do I need to know today? Anything that comes after that until you close it and you shut off your audio file or you stop your meditation, anything that comes in from that starting point to that ending point is a message that spirit is trying to convey to you about what you need to know today. So asking a direct question, and it could be that maybe you're really trying to sort out what to do about, should I move to California? You could switch the question. It could be, spirit team, what do I need to know about moving to California? So you can be more specific with it. But for somebody that may not like to sit in meditation or write, I would recommend doing a audio file where you are the person speaking into the audio file, and that you have the question that you say, and then closing your eyes and getting really relaxed. And you verbally, I would infuse more present tense language into what you want to bring about. So if it's the affirmation, my psychic abilities are opening up to the highest frequency, that could be one that you're using each day.
Okay.
But I would say it every day and believe it. You can also sit with pen and paper, and at the top of the piece of paper, you can ask, spirit or your spirit team, what do I need to know today? Go into a meditation and write down everything that you are seeing, sensing, receiving without judgment. Dump everything onto the piece of paper, even if it's a word or a color. And anything that comes in from the moment that you're asking, what do I need to know today on the piece of paper, until you're done with your meditation or your writings, everything that comes in is a message that spirit is delivering because you've set that intention with an opening and a closing. But if you don't necessarily like the journaling part or writing it all down, you can do it as an audio file instead. So you would open up, let's say, an app on your phone, and you could start recording and say, Spirit, what do I need to know today? Or you can be very direct and ask a question like, Spirit, what do I need to know about a potential move to California? And instead of writing it out, you just keep the audio file going as you're relaxing and doing your breath work, and speak into the audio recording anything that's coming forward that you're seeing, that you're sensing. And that audio recording can be how you capture it. So you can do it either in writing or in the audio file, but they're always interesting to go back to as well. So I would save them, because after a few days, a few weeks go by, you may actually go back to the recording or the piece of paper. So I would date it so that you can see what did come about through asking spirit a direct question. But I would approach it as that two-way relationship. So if you're asking spirit a question, and if you're getting a symbol or something, a feeling, and you don't understand what it means, you can ask them in that moment. You can say, Spirit, I see that you're showing me a set of keys. I don't know what that means. Can you show it to me another way? And you will get another image that comes in. So treat it like you are speaking to a really dear friend of yours, and you can ask for more information and more layers as you do it.
Oh, I like that. That's great advice. Perfect. Um, how do you work with people? Are you working with people online, in person?
I
How does
do,
that go?
yeah, I am in Idaho.
Hmm.
And so there aren't a ton of people here yet that are as open as I would love them to be. It's growing. There are people coming from all parts of the country that are starting to awaken the area here, which is really lovely to see. But online, I teach classes, and I also do something called Cardapalooza that was downloaded because I love Oracle cards, and I really was trying to develop an idea where I could mail a letter that was like an uplifting letter to people in the mail, so that when they open their mailbox, they actually felt like really happy about getting this letter that feels good. And so I blended it into this idea where I have 44 envelopes, and they have Oracle cards in them. And I do it as a live stream. And for each person, I call out their name and I reach for the envelope. I share inspirational messages that are on the Oracle cards and what I feel as I'm reading those messages.
Who are these people that you're reading to? Friends, family, students?
I have like 260,000 social media followers.
Okay.
So, yeah, so that's people from all over the place, and they can buy them even if they don't live in the US. So, it's literally all over the world. So, it's fun to see all these different people that are coming together in all different countries. And so, then now what I do is I mail them the Oracle cards, and with the cards, I write a letter from the universe and I put it in with their cards. And so, wherever they live, most countries, they'll get an envelope. And last week's were hot pink envelopes. So they will be arriving to people shortly. But yeah, so mostly online these days.
Okay. All right. Very cool. Seems like most things have gone online, especially since COVID. But just thought I'd ask if you were doing much in person up there in northern Idaho. It's got to be a little different environment for the work you're doing.
I'd say after the pandemic that most of my work became in online because I was in person majority before that.
Okay.
And then everything, I had to pivot everything into an online space because I was headlining a show in Las Vegas and pandemic hits, my show goes away, entertainment is shut down for an extended period of time. The whole city crashed. And so I thought, well, geez. So one of the first things I did was I'm going to do my stage show in an online format. So that got me thinking, well, how do I do this more? Like, how do I build a company that was in person and switch it all into virtual? And so I did that all primarily around that 2020 2021 timeframe.
Hmm. How exciting. It's, I mean, obviously a lot of bad stuff around COVID, but so many good things evolved out of it. So are you feeling any major shifts or predictions for the future now?
Yes, this dismantling is the major theme right now. And Spirit showed like basically everything that our lives touch is being affected right now. And I don't say that to cause fear, but I do feel based on my channelings that what we are living through today, our souls chose to be here for this exact time.
Hmm.
Because I do think that everything that we see in our day to day lives now, I think over the next, we could call it 7 years, early 2030s is what I get taken to. So between now and early 2030s, that by the time we get to the early 2030s, our day to day life will look very, very different. And Spirit has shown that there'll be a couple of different, like major groups, we could call them. One that they've shown me is individuals that band together and create more of the off grid living and more of like communes and living off of the land and doing more like bartering for goods and services. And then there's a whole other group that is more the robotics and the AI and the digital currency. And I think we all exist on Earth still, but I think it also aligns with the timeline split that so many people have been seeing. But I don't think it's like Earth creates a second Earth and half of us go live over there. But it feels like one group is not really interacting much with the other group. So it's almost like we've created two worlds on Earth as these next several years begin to unfold. But I think that many of us chose to be here right now because we're going to be part of the rebuilding and we are part of the wayshowers. And your choice gets to be your choice of what you want to align more with what I just described with those two examples. But I think also Spirit is saying that it will be important for us to realize that we can't hold anyone up or force anyone to come with us. And so, for example, if you're feeling more aligned with like living off grid, maybe building an earth ship or a tiny home, but maybe your friends don't get it. They don't want to do that. That it's going to be important for you to choose what it is that you feel most aligned with and who is meant to be on that pathway will find you and connect with you. But I think a lot of that path, the energy that feels most prevalent in that energy field is sovereignty. So it's almost like a split between being sovereign and not being sovereign in a lot of ways. And you might be surprised in the coming years who around you selects one group versus the other group. But I think our local communities will become increasingly more important over the next several years. And I think the way that we will communicate with each other will also change. You know, we obviously see AI and robotics and all this tech coming online, but I also think there's another really important thing that's going to be happening, which is the rise in consciousness, and that we will be using things like telepathy more and more to communicate with each other. And so even the ways that we exchange information now, I think will change. And in the future, instead of being online, you know, recording a conversation, we'll be in more of like a, or the option to be in more of a virtual reality where we are sitting in the same room across from each other
Hmm.
in that reality. And that will become more and more common. I don't even think that the way colleges and universities operate will be the same in the next few years because it feels like the education becomes incredibly personalized and that students will be going into their own virtual reality to learn what it is that they want to learn instead of going to classroom filled with people that may or may not be on the same path or journey that they're on and what they want to achieve. So it's going to be much more personalized moving forward. So if there is anyone with universities or colleges listening, it may be wise to figure out what your augmented reality AI infrastructure is going to be and how you can create a personalized lesson plan for your students because that's where it feels like it's going. But yeah, there's a lot to unpack, uh, and I think it's going to feel like they're saying in my ear, Spirit saying Mr. Toad's Wild Ride from Disneyland, where it might feel like, wait, I thought I was going that direction. Wait, now I feel like I'm going this other direction. So I think it's going to feel like it's got a little bit of that spin to it from that ride. But you're at the right place. You're here at the right time. Try not to get hooked into the fear and the panic. Um, but instead trust that you're one of the way showers that's here to actually bring us into this new reality.
Hmm. I like the sounds of a new reality with so many things that are askew in the world right now. Yeah. You mentioned this destruction or dismembering but I mean, how far, how deep is that? Is it superficial? I mean, how far back are we going with this?
It feels like we're starting over.
Okay.
Yeah. So
In
it
what
does. Yeah.
sense? Because I mean, if you're talking about AI and robotics, I mean, those things don't happen with all the structures that we have in place. So if we're going backwards, I mean, how far and what does that mean for all of us?
The way that I have framed it based on the channelings that I've done is that life in a way gets much simpler. So it feels like as these next few years unfold, that the things that matter to us now will not matter in the same way. I think that I've been nudged many, many times about, you know, scream from the top of the rooftops that people need to know where their food is coming from and how to grow food and how to have a garden. So it feels like we're almost going back to what some of our grandparents or great grandparents did during the Great Depression,
Okay.
where they had to get innovative, scrappy. They had to learn skills like gardening and canning, jarring.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually was reaching for a glass of water this morning and I was holding it up actually a moment ago. It's a mason jar. And as I was drinking out of this cup this morning, I had a vision, a flash of my grandparents canning vegetables from their garden. And I know by, doing this work for over a decade, I know when something like that drops in unexpectedly
Hmm.
that there's something in it. There's a message in it for us. And so I think that life could have some resemblance of that resilience that was needed during the Great Depression.
Okay.
It won't look exactly the same because we're not living in that time. And, there's a lot of things about modern society that they didn't have back then. But I've been told that the more that we are not reliant on systems and the more that we are resilient, the easier we will get through these coming several years. So if somebody is, having a corporate 9 to 5 job, for example, maybe they're listening to this today because Spirit's trying to nudge them to think outside of the box. There's nothing wrong with a 9 to 5 job. I've had many of them over the years. But I think there's this piece of the story that is going to ask us to be very, very creative and resourceful.
Okay.
Because I do think that 9 to 5 jobs, and we're starting to see some of that data come out, that there are jobs that are going away.
Hmm.
Companies are not rehiring those positions. I think it is going to get worse with the number of like full-time corporate jobs that are available in the United States, for example. And so if you're listening to this and you're feeling like this nudge of, I've had this idea or I've been thinking about starting this, yes. Like I would lean into that and start creating something, even if it's on the side, that can be yours, that you think aligns with what people would need in a society that has a lot of AI, tech, and robotics, but also a lot of people that don't want to have anything to do with it. And so, could you bring something to the table that you create? And there's all kinds of AI resources that are very inexpensive that you can use to create your company now. There are so many things that weren't even available a year ago, 2 years ago, that are at your fingertips. And so, everything I have heard and seen so far from Spirit would be to nudge everybody listening to say, how can you do it more on your own? And doesn't mean you can't use AI or tech, but how can you create something that you feel excited about that will help the world in some way?
Okay. Good advice. So I don't know if I'm sensing this right. Are you suggesting more of an economic collapse?
Yes. I'm sensing an economic collapse. I'm seeing a push for digital currency
Okay.
that it feels like most countries would be a part of. It feels like World War III. It feels like people that countries that had once been friends are no longer friends, new alliances. It does feel like there will be more threats of nuclear weapons being used. I haven't seen one go off, but I have seen the threats of nuclear weapons. And then I think I originally channeled that through about a month ago. And I now have seen like the nuclear threats, and uh, we can find that, on mainstream media. But I
Hmm.
do think there's going to be more threats there. The energy of the whole war and what's happening in the Middle East, I feel like as I say that out loud, I feel like I'm inside of a hall of mirrors at a fun house at the carnival. It feels distorted. It feels dizzying. It doesn't feel fun. I feel like I'm in some kind of horror movie. And I hope that I'm wrong. because the feeling that I get with it is more of a humanitarian crisis, a huge issue with fuel. I was getting downloads not too long ago about issues with planes and planes not being able to fly. And at first I thought, well, maybe it's mechanical. This is where your brain starts getting involved when you start, getting downloads.
Hmm.
And now I'm like, oh, wait a second. There's a fuel shortage. There are planes that aren't going to be able to fly. So it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, too, about two-way communication. Because
Yeah.
in that moment, when I was seeing issues with planes and planes not being able to fly, I should have taken my own advice and said, why aren't they flying? And so now I'm seeing it unfold. Uh, and I do think we're going to see issues with fuel in many, many countries. And that is going to impact food and supply chain and who can get what when. I wish I could have had a bullhorn a couple years back when Spirit kept saying, you have to tell people, like, get clean water, uh, talk about with your family, like where your food is coming from. What do you have on hand that you would need to get through a period where you didn't have access to anything? And I said it as loud as I could to as many people as I could, but now it's actually starting to happen.
Hmm.
And I would just say to anybody out there listening, wondering, like, well, what should I do? I would just think about your life. Maybe sit down in a chair in your home and think about, make a list of what do you need for the next 30 days? Like if you had to have it, and not because I think every area is going to be hit the same way, because I don't think that will happen, but I do feel like they will need some flexibility because you may not want to go to a store. You may not want to try to find out which store actually has the things that you need. I would get a few things that you could use if you needed to, like a water filtration straw. Um, Maybe get a few buckets from Home Depot if you need to have some buckets around for something. I won't fill in the blank of where my mind went with that, but I think we all kind of need to do an inventory of what do we need, and not out of fear, but more out of flexibility. That I want to have things around me that I do need, so that I don't have to go out there trying to find it. And when maybe I don't want to have to go out there to try to find it. And I do think there will be neighbors helping neighbors. So
Yeah.
it doesn't feel to me like you're going to have to be in your house by yourself, not talking or seeing anyone. It doesn't feel like that kind of lockdown. But I do think there will be a lot of people voluntarily staying inside and coming together on their own street corner about what do you need? Well, what do you need? Well, oh, well, I'm having this issue at my house. Can you help me with this? And so it feels like people banding together more on their own street corners.
Okay, that's a positive thing. I was gonna say this,
Yeah.
the energy of this podcast, it felt like it started up here and it's just slowly gone down to this doom and gloom.
I actually, in a maybe strange kind of way,
Yeah.
I don't feel doom and gloom about anything I was just saying. I understand like
Okay.
how it can come across that way.
Yeah.
But I also feel deeply within myself that I came here for this exact time
Hmm.
because I wanted to be here to help in the ways that I could help while everything was changing.
Yeah.
And so I see that as a positive. Like I would love to be a part of a community where we really are helping each other, because I think we've gotten so far away from that in so many pockets of the world that I want to be a part of a community that says, what do you need? Well, what do you need? Where we really are coming together through, major headlines, and that we truly do care about what's happening on our own street and with the people that live near us. So I would encourage everyone to kind of think about how they would approach their own neighborhood or their own street corner. And people will be incredibly resourceful. We will be inventive. We will come up with things in the next several years because we have to. And I think that humanity will be faced with major forks in the road, pivot points. And at first glance, we may feel like we don't have a solution. But I believe that people are intelligent. And I believe that people will be able to come together and figure out any problem.
Yeah, I agree with you. Are you feeling like this is a crucial time, like this is something we need to do now, or is this going to develop over the next couple of years?
I think 2026 and 2027 are going to be very, very loud.
Okay.
So I personally am doing things in the near future to get everything set up and ready to go so that I have the options and the flexibility. But I think based on the things that we've talked about, I feel like a lot of that starts happening this year and next year, and that there will be aftermath that we'll be dealing with for the next several years. But I don't think we really feel like we land in a more structured place until the early 2030s.
Okay. Which isn't that far away, really.
It's time is speeding up so fast these
Yeah.
days that, a day feels like an hour sometimes.
Right. Any explanation for why that is, why time's going so much faster? I thought it was just, I have this theory that as you age, your sight gets blurry, so things just feel like they're going faster.
When you're aging, you have a lot more life that you've lived, and so one day doesn't feel as long. But I actually think there's an energetic component to it. I think that as energy is on the rise and the frequency is on the rise, I think we feel like time is speeding up. So I actually think it's a frequency thing too.
Okay. With this rise in energy and shift in consciousness, do you think that it can overcome um, the breakdown?
I think they will both coexist.
Okay.
I think we'll see the light and the shadow at the same time. And I think that will be pulled more into one versus the other. And there are a lot of people out there that aren't awake to any of this, or they're not
Mhm.
seeing the energy, or they've decided, like, I'm just going to keep my head down, go to work, come home, go to sleep, do the same thing over and over again. They're not really looking at the bigger picture of what's going on here.
Yeah.
And
It's
so
kind
I
of
think
bliss in
they'll,
a way, right?
yeah, in a way, in a way. Um, but I feel like they may naturally feel more aligned with the shadow side of everything that will be dismantling, and being a part of that. And so I think that's the loudness. There's going to be a lot of loud. So whether it's, people taking to the streets, riots, vandalism, things like that, there's going to be that side of it. But then there's so many other people each and every day that I'm connecting with on socials or that send me emails, and they're like, I'm going through this awakening. I'm like, oh yeah, like welcome to the party. So I think there's gonna feel in some ways like there really is a split between two different mindsets or two different groups of people.
Hmm. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. It seems like there kind of is already, and the noise has already begun. But I can definitely see that.
Yes, and just remember, you don't have to get pulled into it. You can be in the higher frequency.
Yeah. Interesting conversation here. So I want to ask you if there's any, we're getting close to the end of the show. Any final thoughts, anything you want to share with people before we end?
I think there's going to be a narrative that will get a bit louder around people that are rescuers, healers, and people that are victim energy. And Spirit wanted me to mention that. And so people listening, I think there's going to be a lot of people that that may resonate with they're the rescuer, they're the healer, they're the one helping everybody else. But I think there's going to be an opportunity in the next year or two where you start to notice how many like victim energies are around you and how they may be affecting your own energy.
Mm.
And so if you are a healer or a way shower, you're somebody holding the light for other people, you may feel like your work as a healer shifts a little bit where you feel more confident to hold the lantern, but not feeling like you have to fix anyone. And so I think our relationship to being a rescuer or a healer is going to shift in a very positive way where we're going to feel more maybe like a coach, sharing ideas, sharing inspiration, but not feeling like we have to pick up or hold anybody in the frequency that we are in.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's a book called The Power of Ted by David Emerald that completely changed my life. So anybody hearing what Spirit wanted to have me interject here, that would be a book that I would go to. I think it was well done and easy to navigate.
Okay. Sounds good. Sounds good. So, just one more time, shortly, how do people raise their energy, their tune into the frequency to increase their psychic abilities in a nutshell?
Yes.
I want
Yes.
to leave this on a
Meditate.
high note.
Meditate in whatever way feels right for you. Journal or do an audio recording, whatever feels right for you. Do things that help you feel more uplifted, embodying more of the well-being. So you could kind of think of it as also, what would my doctor tell me to do to live a healthier, happier life? Whether that's food, moving the body, taking walks in nature, stress reduction, sleeping more, all of those things will also help to raise your frequency.
Very good. I love that advice. All right. Well, thanks again for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. It was a wonderful conversation. Definitely an interesting conversation. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.